Welcome to Inspired Living with Keri Murphy, the podcast, where as your host each and every week, I am going to inspire you and empower you to share your message and step into that big vision you see for yourself. I'll be bringing you celebrity interviews, influencer insights, and my personal tips from decades as an on-camera talent, TV host, media expert, and entrepreneur, so you can build a brilliant seven-figure brand. Because when you're inspired, you inspire others. So let's go. Hey, welcome back to the show. I have to say, this is an interview I was so excited about because it's been a little while since I've sat down with my good friend, Emma Isaacs. In fact, I interviewed her a few years ago on Inspired Living TV, and I have been dying to talk to her since she had her new baby boy. She has 6 kids under the age of 11. Oh my goodness. And she just wrote an incredible book that I cannot wait to get my hands on. She is the founder and global CEO of Business Chicks, which is one of the largest women networking groups in the world. And I often ask myself, Emma, how do you do it all? And in this interview, she shares exactly that. She also talks about what winging it really means and some of the best business advice she has ever received. I am telling you, you are going to love this interview with my good friend, Emma Isaacs. All right, Miss Emma, you have no idea how excited I am to have you on the show. I am fascinated with your life since our last interview, which is hard to believe was so long ago.
It's been a while. I think I was pregnant like 2 pregnancies ago, which is 3 years. We've got to do this more often. We've got to get together more often.
And let's
sorry.
Like, when are you not pregnant? Like, it's amazing.
I don't know.
You have 6 kids under the age of 11. But Emma, we're going to get there in a minute. You have been up to some amazing things in your life. You're someone that when I met, I just instantly fell in love with. Your charisma, your love for women, your love for entrepreneurship. Did that come easy for you early on? I mean, you started your first business at 18. You started investing in property at 19. You were a self-made millionaire at 23. I mean, lady, give us a little bit of the background here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting when you look at your childhood, right? When you rewind the clock and go back and you think about what you're made to do and what you were good at as a child. And I'm the eldest of 3 kids. So if you believe anything about birth order, I was kind of born a leader and I always wanted to do everything first and everything fastest and everything the best. And so I've always had that quite innately competitive spirit. But I don't think I ever had a dream to be an entrepreneur. I mean, I didn't even know what the word meant.
Did you even know what that was?
No. I mean, I when I started my first company, I probably didn't hear that word for like 5 or 6 years into that business journey. I just thought, okay, I dropped out of uni first and foremost. I lasted for about 6 months because it was going far too slowly. Yeah, there you go. Far too slowly for me. And I met this girl out socially and she had started this tiny little recruitment agency. And she invited me in for a job interview and the rest is history, and I was 18 years at the time and her business partner at the time left that company. And as he was walking out the door, he said to her, if you were going to offer equity to anyone in this world, you'd offer it to that kid sitting there. And so I had some savings and I bought into the business and, we took that little company from, I think there was like 4 of us when we first started to over 40 people. And, we turned it in
at 18.
Yeah. I mean, it took me 7 years. Don't get me wrong. I was in that business for 7 years, but we grew it into a really fantastic culture and beautiful little business. So that was kind of my first foray into entrepreneurship. And I ultimately sold out of that business. And I mean, this story, but I got invited along to a Business Chicks event. And I remember my first ever thought was, I'm not going to anything that calls themselves chicks. I mean, that's so derogatory to women. That's insulting. I'm a feminist. I'm a real, proper entrepreneur. There's no ways I'm going to that thing. And she said, you need to get over yourself. You need to come along and experience what this is all about. So I walked into that room. I remember hearing the music pumping. People were high-fiving and hugging. And I just fell in love with the concept. And I soon after that heard it was for sale. And I think I was 25 at the time. And I ran up to the lady at the end and I said, I want to help. Like, how can I, make this thing happen? And I ended up buying the business. And that's what I've been doing and filling my days with for the past 15 years now. And it's really been a complete labor of love and a beautiful experience. We've grown it from 200 members to a community that now reaches over 500,000 women across the globe. And it sounds cliche and it sounds a little corny, but I am as excited about the business as I was 15 years ago. And I think that's just, as an entrepreneur, if you can say that about your business, I mean, I just feel like I've won the lottery. I feel very, very blessed that I've found something that gets me out of bed and still propels me and keeps me interested.
I mean, we have to have that. I still feel the same way about Inspired Living, and I'm 10 years in and I love it. I love what we do. But there have been plenty of businesses I didn't feel that way. Or you start kind of getting,
right.
It was like a 5-year itch. Like, okay, is this it? There's got to be something more. So when you still have that excitement, you have to have it, because being an entrepreneur is not easy. And Business Chicks was based in Australia. You're now in the US. Tell us a little bit about that. How was that shift and moving your family and really everything that you knew? You knew from her accent, my friend, that she was US, right? She's a true Aussie, which I love Aussies. Tell us a little bit about that transition.
Yeah, so we moved to the States almost 5 years ago now, if you believe it, and we live in Los Angeles. Yeah, crazy. So half of my kids have complete American accents and the other ones are still little Aussies. So that's really beautiful. I mean, the reason we wanted to move was because I feel that it's my responsibility as a leader of a women's community to really walk my walk and talk my talk. And I'm always encouraging our members to, reach for the stars and play a bigger game and put yourself in uncertainty and put yourself out there and get in discomfort. And if I can't do that for myself, then what's it all about? So we decided to pack up the family and move here 5 years ago. And, it's the first few years were completely impossible. I suffered huge amounts of failure. We were very much underfunded when we tried to get the business off the ground the first time. I know my Australian business still is very, very successful. And I moved to the States to try and get it off the ground here. But I was bleeding that business of cash. It takes so much money to start up in another country. And, coupled with the fact that I, had the 4 young kids at the time and wasn't sleeping and it was so stressful. So I really had to take a moment and pause. And, the way I talk about this time, and I talk about it in the book as well, is like, as entrepreneurs, all about this, Keri, but you spend your whole life like climbing a mountain, right? It's just up, 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 and it feels like it's uphill the whole time, right? It takes a huge amount of exertion and a huge amount of energy, and you have to lift yourself every single day.
It's a heavy lift.
It's a heavy lift, and I love that saying. What's that saying? Just because I carry it all doesn't mean it's not heavy. Just because I carry it well doesn't mean it's not heavy. And it was a very, very, very heavy time. But my coach helped me see that, whilst you're climbing this huge mountain of entrepreneurship, it is absolutely okay to rest and take stock and kind of acclimate at base camp, So really for the first couple of years of being here in America, I was like, I don't know really what I'm doing. That's been a massive failure. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to rest a little and I'm going to figure out what's next. And so for me, I kind of feel that I'm living the entrepreneur's dream in a lot of ways. I always say to anyone that I work with that the ultimate aim of any entrepreneur is to make themselves kind of redundant in their business, right? A business needs to run without you. Of course, we are the visionaries. Of course, we are the faces of our business. Of course, we are the drivers, but really your business should be able to tick over and do really well without you being there every single day, day in and day out. So I have that with my Australian business. I have a wonderful CEO. I have a wonderful leadership team. It does not need me. Sure, it probably doesn't grow as fast as I'd like it to if I don't go in and inject some of my energy and enthusiasm from time to time.
Yeah, which is very needed because you are the visionary, right? You're still holding that space for people.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, I'm in a pretty unique and amazing position in that my business does run without me. It pays me. It does really, really well. So that's freed me up to think about what I want to explore creatively. And that's led me to write this amazing book that we're going to talk about at some point today and do a lot more speaking and also be around for my 6 young kiddos as well, which is a new thing for me.
Yes. And how is that? Because I have a 6-month-old at home and literally right before this, I'm like handing off the bottle, got my 5-year-old. We don't have help this week. And here I am with 2, Emma, thinking we live in a jungle. We live in a madhouse. Like, how do you do it with 6? Share some tips and strategies, because I know I am not the only one.
Yeah. I mean,
how you do that.
We're all wondering. Listen, my youngest, mine range from 11. So they're 11, 9, 7, 5, 3, and the little new guy is 3 months old. And I can tell you, after I had him 3 months ago, I remember sitting up in my bed Googling how to survive the newborn phase. Like I just thought I was not going to get through this. And then I had to kind of slap myself around the face and go, you've been here 5 times before. You know what you're doing. Just keep doing it. Yeah, you will survive this. I don't know. I mean, I will tell you that having 6 is absolutely like a high contact sport, and it's not for everyone. I think our brand of doing it is very much about being calm always. It's about having a heck of a lot of fun. It's about not taking ourselves too seriously. It's about not aiming for perfection. But if you want to have a bunch of kids, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 like I have, you're going to need to give up something. And for me, the way I've been able to do it is to be able to give up this notion of control, like controlling everything and having to have everything.
Impossible. Yes.
Impossible. Give it up. Just give it up. That's been my learning. It's just really about, I do not know what's coming in any given day. I do not know if there's going to be 3 tantrums. I mean, listen, I had an experience last week.
There's the next reality show, Emma Isaac.
Right? But I want to tell you, I had 4 kids crying at one point last week, and I was like looking around going, what is going on? I mean, that is an extraordinary amount of stress.
Where
and I just
is the wine is what I would be saying.
Pass the wine. I know it is only 10 a.m., but pass the wine. But, I just think there's no sort of huge secrets. We are quite organized, and we just very pragmatic, not dramatic about things. I think that's probably quite the Aussie way, is to be quite calm and chilled. And I'm lucky that I chose my partner reasonably well, Rowan, and he brings a lot of...
really are a good match for each other. You travel. I mean, he's, from what I know, it just seems like, he loves also supporting. And that's really important. And I will say, and the reason why we're bringing up the 6 kids, even though that really is amazing, I think because women are always so hard on themselves, Emma, and they think, well, I can't have this if I want this. And I need to wait until this is perfect before I start thinking of growing my family or start writing my book or start growing my business. And I think one of the traits of being an entrepreneur is that we are a little cray-cray, but we dive in and we figure it out as we go. Right?
Yeah. You build the plane while it's flying, and that's certainly been the philosophy of my life. Yeah, right. We'll just put on another wing here, another wing here. I think that's exactly right. I think that's what I found with Ro, with my husband. He is very supportive. It's not by any means a perfect union. There is no union that is perfect, and he will say that as well. But I think, that whole Sheryl Sandberg advice of picking your partner wisely is a really sound one. So if anyone young out there, or perhaps someone who's considering remarrying, just take that.
One of the best, most important business decisions you'll ever make.
Right, exactly.
If you decide to marry and be with.
Yeah.
So good, Emma. So tell me about Winging It. I've had the wonderful opportunity to see you try to, build Business Chicks here. I know what a great success it is in the US. You have amazing speakers like Sir Richard Branson and Arianna Huffington and Diane von Furstenberg. And, someone would look at you and go, oh my gosh, like she must have had this all planned out. Like she has this amazing speakers, this incredible company, her family. And again, going back to that inner critic and that inner voice in all of us that says, I will do this when. Tell us about Winging It. Tell me about how planned you've been in growing your life and your business, and what we can expect from the book.
Yeah, great question. So what I'd say to that is that really for the past 15 years of building Business Chicks, I've been in a really unique position to be able to talk to hundreds, if not thousands of women, and really being able to dive into what holds them back and what propels them forward. And it really led me to write this book because the collective wisdom of those women is sacred. And I know you know that. And unfortunately, it is still women, as you say, that are plagued with a unique set of challenges. We wait to be asked. We wait to be tapped on the shoulder for opportunities. We wait until our kids are old enough or have gone to college, or we have enough money, or we have enough time. And so I always talk about the old example of a job advertisement. A woman will see a job advertisement and think, oh, I've only got 7 or 8 of the qualifying criteria. And a guy will see, I've got 3 or 4 of the qualifying criteria. I'm going to jump in and apply. It's like...
Or the woman probably wouldn't apply at all.
They wouldn't. They just say, I don't have the 100%. I'm not ready. I don't have it, so I'm not going to apply. So that really led me to think about my philosophies of life, and my philosophies in both business and having run my own companies now for 20 years has very much been about the philosophies of saying yes and figuring it out later, of backing myself into situations, of putting myself in places where I felt like the least intelligent person in the room, because that's ultimately where the growth happens. So when I wrote this book, it's actually a funny little story of how it all came about. I wrote the book and submitted the manuscript, but the day before I submitted the manuscript, I didn't have a working title. Like, I was throwing around all these different ideas. But back before I even started, the first 2 words I wrote when I opened up a Word document and started to write the book were "Winging It," then by Emma Isaacs. And I talked myself out of that title because it didn't seem serious enough and professional enough, and the whole thing. And the day before I went to submit the manuscript, a good friend of mine, I was like, what am I going to call this book? And she's like, like, you got to go back to what felt right and what you initially said. And you are the master of winging it. So just call it that. And so I pitched to the publisher and they loved it. But it's just a culmination of my, again, 20 years of being in business, and, also the study of the people that I have been able to meet and, spend meaningful time with. And I really start to see some themes coming up for successful people. And the thing is this, like, everyone thinks, you look at a Richard Branson or Ariana Huffington or Diane von Furstenberg, and you think that they've got it all worked out. And I'm here to tell you, my friend, like, they do not. They do not. What they have.
It's so great to hear.
They do not. They do not. That's not to discount and to downplay their success. They're immensely successful people, right? And they've achieved incredible feats that, you and I probably can only dream about. Like, I'm not downplaying or minimizing how successful they are, but at some point they did not know what they were doing. And they had to.
Yeah, they didn't write out their 5-year plan, their 10-year plan.
They did not. I mean, like, if you want to look at Branson as a study, like, he started a student magazine when he was like 15 years old. Then he started a record label without knowing what he was doing. Then he started an airline without knowing what he was doing. Then now he's going to space with a space line. He doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, he's working it out. But the point is this, we look at successful people and we think, oh, they have the plan, they have the model, they have the formula, they have the recipe, and they do not. What they have, though, is the confidence to try and figure it out and the grit to stay it out. And that's what I just want to encourage people to do, step foot, put one foot in front of another, just explore, just discover. And honestly, if you can continue to back yourself into situations like that, the whole world does appear.
I love that so much, because I really feel, in my experience of working with entrepreneurs for so many years now, especially women, we get stuck in that inner critic of, I'm not ready, I don't have enough, I don't know enough. And obviously you've had an incredibly tremendous career and will continue to have, and you've surrounded yourself with amazing people. And let's go back to that, Emma, because I have to agree with you. One of the things that has been a huge pillar in my own success is the women like you that I know, that I learned from. How important has mentorship and community been to you in building your business?
You know what? It's everything. It's really everything. You alluded to it before. I mean, the journey of an entrepreneur is such a bumpy one, and we cannot go it alone. So me being able to work out how to build a powerful network around me of people who have power, but also people who perhaps are just there when I need to have a vent or have a cry. And that's certainly been something that I've worked really, really, really hard on throughout my entire career, and building relationships with people and being kind to people and doing favors for other people and reaching out when there's no reason to reach out. That has been one of the really key elements to me building my companies.
Because I think that's really important, to reach out when there's no reason to reach out, whether it's your clients, your friends, your customers. I think that's how you build loyalty in any relationship, right?
100%. And it's like what Dr. Lois Frankel says. She says, when you need a relationship, it's too late to build one.
Oh, that's good.
Right? It's good. So what that tells me is that we should be continuously investing in our relationships, continuously checking in with other people. Just relationships are like a bank account, right? You've got to keep making little deposits along the way. And at some point in your life, you're going to need to withdraw some cash from that bank account. But it's that discipline and the rigor of continuously being kind to others and doing favors for others that will set you up for success. So yeah, I'd say it's everything. I think also, though, what is just as important, and again, you talked about it a little bit before, but it's working on the inner critic or the inner voice, right? Because what we can tend to do, and I know a lot about your audience and I'm one of them, what we can tend to do is look too far outwards, right? And run around kind of asking for advice from everyone and everywhere. And the problem with doing that is that it can catch you off guard and you need to course correct, right? Because I believe that we all have the answers to the questions that we're asking if we only just sat still for a moment and really question what we want from our lives. And I know you know that, there's something very, very powerful with a stillness. We all run around being busy and filling our days and thinking that everyone else has got it sorted out and asking for advice. But if you really were to sit still, if I put you in a forest and not the jungle of your home, but in the forest, and you sat there for 2 weeks, like you would be able to figure out exactly what you wanted for your life and exactly the vision that you wanted to accomplish. So whilst I think community is everything, your network is everything, your relationships are everything, the relationship you have with yourself and the monologue you have with yourself about what's possible for your life is just as important.
I love so much that you said that. When I was pregnant with Lauren, I was a single mom on my own. And I remember I met an incredible spiritual mentor who I had no idea that I needed. And actually Dana Decker, who was a speaker at Brilliant the same year you were, introduced us. And I remember, Emma, her telling me, you don't have a spiritual practice. And here I am thinking I'm very spiritual and I believe in God and all of these things. And she's like, I want you every day before you do anything to breathe for 20 minutes, to set your intentions when you feel a disconnect, to ask the question and wait for the answer. And I feel like, gosh, I miss that practice. I've gotten out of it. And every time I go back to it, though, my day is different. I show up differently in my business. I think I'm a much better leader. And I feel like as entrepreneurs, we are always seeking validation or someone to like our idea, or is this the right thing? And because we are visionaries and we do have a lot of great ideas and we're seeking approval instead of going inward and figuring out, is the timing right? Is this the right thing for me to do? Is this the title of my book? And we forget that. And I really love that you bring that up because I've personally experienced that and it makes a huge difference. We all have 5-10 minutes a day where we can just sit and breathe.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I need that reminder as well. I sometimes can get to the evening thinking, have I breathed at all today?
My producer who was helping me, with the show notes, not that I needed them, but she was reading through everything and reading about winging it. And she's like, I cannot wait to read this book. We're all very excited here in the US to get our hands on this book. I know it's been a huge success for you in Australia and in other places of the world. What does it mean to you to get it published here? And what is your hopes for the book?
Yeah, great question. It's a really, really exciting time for me. As you said, the book sold really, really, really well in Australia when it was released there. And,
you're a big deal there. You're kind of a big thing. Not that you're not a big thing here, but
I'm not. Let's be honest. I mean, I'm just a little fish in a really big pond here, and it's a beautiful, humbling experience. And there's no shame in that whatsoever. And it's been wonderful to have a beginner's mind and to work it out. And it's not been without a tremendous amount of, I don't want to say failure, but certainly rejection. When I went to publish the book in Australia, there was a bidding war from the top 5 publishers and, everyone was falling over themselves to get the rights, which was, we kind of sat back and went, oh, this is kind of nice. And and actually we ultimately didn't go with the highest offer at all. We went with the one that felt best and who we had the most chemistry with. And then the experience of trying to shop it around here in the States was very, very different. And I think we stopped counting about, I don't even know what number we got up to, but the rejection was pretty hard to take. But, like everything in life, you land where you need to. And we have found a home with the amazing publishers at Sounds True. And they've just been such a joy to work with. Like it's been frictionless and just beautiful. So yeah, I mean, it's my hopes that the book will do really, really well here. I mean, I feel it's jam-packed with practical advice. I feel it's got some great stories and anecdotes from really successful people. And there's lots of stuff in it about my philosophies on parenting and creating wealth and making money and starting and scaling businesses. So yeah, I really hope that it resonates here. And we're getting some great feedback from all the reviews. So I just want to get it into the hands of as many people as possible.
I'm going to help you do that. We're going to get it in everyone's hand, especially if you are looking to grow and scale your business. Because again, so often we think we need to have it all figured out. And quite frankly, none of us really do. You just take the next step. You surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. You breathe when you can, and you drink a little wine. That's what, right? I think that's it.
I think we got it. We got it.
I have a question for you too, kind of off topic here, but you decided to talk about video, right? You decided to go live with your childbirth. And thousands of people tuning in. And here I am looking at you, and it's a water birth, right? You're at home.
Yeah.
So first of all, I want to know what pulled you to make that decision. And why did you want to share it? And what was the result of doing that?
Yeah. Great question. I didn't know we were going to go there, but let's go there. That's great. So the quick story with that is that I've always been terrified of childbirth. I mean, since I was a young kid, my mum would tell me stories of her births that were traumatic and involved.
I was in labor for 50 hours.
Yeah, all that. I had to walk for 3 days. And you got it. Like it was like 32 stitches and the whole thing. So I was like my whole childhood, like, I'm never having kids, right? And then as you do, like I fell in love. I, met Ro. We got married and we fell pregnant pretty quickly afterwards. And so, as my tummy started to grow, I became acutely aware that I was going to have to get this thing out of me somehow.
What am I going to do now?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And so I just started this intense process of education. So I watched every single video and documentary. I read every single book. I went to birthing classes, and then I kind of retrained and re-educated and relearned what I had learned about childbirth. And it kind of led me down this path of thinking I could have a natural birth. And so I did that. I did that for my first. I had a beautiful birth at home, and that was really lovely. And I did that for the subsequent next 4. And on my 5th birth with Piper, that was the most incredible experience. There were angels in the room. It was a beautiful, beautiful evening. And I wanted to share that experience. But I remember beforehand, everyone talking me out of it and saying, what if something goes wrong? And it was a really big lesson for me because I knew I wanted to do it and I knew it was the right thing to do, but I got myself talked out of it, and which is crazy. We have to take our own advice at times. So when I became pregnant with my 6th bubba, I knew. I was like, I'm going to share this. And also what ended up happening that was really lovely is, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. So everyone is at home. We're so used to now being on Zoom calls. We're so used to digesting our content digitally. It's just what we're doing, right? And also, he was born on the first day of summer, and it was at the height of the Black Lives Matter protests. So as I was birthing him, like there were helicopters literally like above
you're
our
like
house.
Right in it. Like you're really
right.
Everything was happening.
Yeah. Well, we're a few blocks away from the LA mayor. So we were like right in it. So it was a really intense moment in time, all of us under curfew, all of us in lockdown from the pandemic. And so I'd never been sure that we could all do with a little bit of joy or positivity in that time. And so, of course, while it was happening, I didn't know what was happeing. We just had a camera. It was all very PG. It wasn't like up close and right on the top. It's all good. I was, yes. Yeah, totally. So I wasn't obviously worried about what the camera was doing. That was off of, it was just over there in the living room. But after the birth, I did watch back a little bit of the footage, and it was just so beautiful to see everyone chiming in with their messages of support and people saying, I'm in tears, I needed this. I had terrible births, but that was actually really healing for me, or I'm expecting and that's given me confidence, or just one more push, Em. Like it was just the sisterhood on steroids. It was the most beautiful experience for me to kind of relive that a few days later. And I have not stopped fielding emails and text messages saying, thank you for sharing that. It was really quite profound for me and beautiful. And, the added bonus was all of my family are in Australia, so they got to share in it as well. And it was a beautiful moment. It makes me want to have a 7th so I could do it again.
I'm going to talk to Ro. We're going to have
Oh, dear.
Oh, thinking about that, I think that you are such a wonderful walking example of what it means to give life, not only to your 6 beautiful kids, but to women and their dreams, and through Business Chicks and what you've built, like one of the largest women networks in the world. Like you help people like give birth, give life to their dreams and to what's possible. And looking at you writing a book in the middle of the kids and the travel and, everything that you've gone through, and addressing the failures too. I think that so often we hit some sort of road bump and we take that as a sign that we shouldn't keep moving. And I think you're a beautiful example of what it means to feel the road bump, reassess, right? Maybe take a pause and then figure out where you need to keep going. Like with the book, getting it rejected so many times, trying to launch Business Chicks here in the US and it not being the success. You moved your whole family here for that. And being a part of that, I saw what you were creating and I was so hungry and excited to have something like that here because we need it. And it's really interesting how we can know how like great our product or service could be for someone. And yet for some reason, the marketplace isn't ready for it. And let's talk about that for a minute. When that happened, did you just say, you know what, I'm not going to pursue this anymore? Did you decide to just put it on pause? Like, how did you figure out, or what did you decide to do when you weren't seeing the result that you were hoping for, when you had such incredible success in Australia?
Great question. So I've always been someone in business that lets the numbers do the talking. When I talk about business and think about it, I have quite an old-fashioned view about business, and it's simply this: we have to make more money than we're spending. Like, I know that sounds, like completely 101. It's like,
but you have to make money? What?
Yeah. Who knew? Who knew? Who knew? Yeah. But it's like, again, it gets back to this notion of we can all be very, very busy, and we can all fill our days with getting busy. But unless you are in the depths of your business, and unless you understand the mechanics of how you make money, the levers in which you have to pull to make money, those decisions get made for you. So it was not of course, it was a terrible decision to make from my heart and from my soul, and it felt awful, but the numbers were telling me we just simply could not go on. And I think it's interesting, as we get a little bit older, appetite for risk, from my experience, decreases a little bit, and there's more on the line now. I have the family, I have about 40 people I employ in Australia, and their livelihoods depend on me. So I just had to be mature about it and let the numbers speak for themselves. And it's certainly something that, again, was very humbling, and I learned a lot from it. But I don't believe it's the end at all. I actually think it's just the beginning. And I do, not to get too woo-woo on you, but I do believe in the timing of the universe, and I do believe that we can't just have this completely charmed experience. And to be really honest with you, up until that point, things had been like pretty good. Of course I'd had smaller failures, and of course I'd had a million road bumps, but generally it had been pretty good. Like, I'd launched businesses, they'd made money, I'd, worked out how to extract value from the businesses so I could build my own wealth foundation, if you like. It was all going really, really well. So it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful failure. And whilst it hurt so much at the time, it's just propelled me on to do so many other things. And I think to really appreciate it. And don't worry, we're going to get it back, and you're going to be there, and it's going to be amazing. Can't wait. Yeah, it's happening. So,
but there really is. There's our time, and then there's the time, and sometimes universe and our time is not on the same time.
And that's cool. It teaches us patience, resilience, and perseverance, all good qualities.
Or just have kids. That'll teach you lots of patience too. All right, give us the best advice you've ever received.
Oh gosh, the best advice I've ever received. Okay. Given that we are on the parenting theme a little bit, I know a lot of your audience moms, I think I'd say the best advice I've ever received has to do with guilt, because we all experience it. I know your whole audience, I know you are always up to something. You're always striving for more. You're always curious about what's next. The best advice I ever received was from a mentor when I had my first child, and she taught me about dealing with guilt as a mom. And she said, as much as when that little bubba comes out and you look down into its eyes and you start to kind of extrapolate out into their future and imagine what they're going to make of their lives, what they're going to become, what they're going to do with their lives, as much as you're thinking about that for them, they are looking up at you, looking in your eyes and asking the same thing. It's like, Mom, what are you going to get up to? What impact are you going to make? What are you going to create? So that's always really, calmed me if I've ever felt a sense of guilt, because I really believe that my purpose of being on the planet is to be a role model, not only for women, but for my kids as well. So I always revert back to that advice whenever I'm feeling a little bit of guilt creeping in.
I love that. And I'm going to remember that too, because it's true. Like, we're always looking and growing and wanting to achieve new heights in our career and our, in our vision. And sometimes you can't be everywhere at once, and you got to let go and let them know that, you're a role model, that they see hope in you as you see hope for your future too. So thank you for that. I'm going to take that with me today, Em. I really appreciate that. It is so wonderful to catch up with you. We need to do this more.
In person.
Please. Yes. We don't live that far, except it is LA. So by the time I get there, it'll be a few hours. But I've heard traffic is less out there right now.
It really is.
Let's go back to, what does inspired living mean to you?
Oh, gosh, that's a really great question. Let's think about it. Inspired living for me is all about choices. It's about having the resources to be able to make the choices you need to make, and that's in your family and your business. So for me, it's about designing a life where you have choices to make and making those decisions really, really well.
So good, Em. Thank you. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for, really showing us what we're all capable of through winging it and stop waiting for this need to get it right and to be perfect. And I so appreciate you and how you show up for women and everyone who knows you. You're just truly a bright light. So, Em, thank you so much. I can't wait to get my hands on winging it. We will definitely have a link for you to order in the show notes. And please get your hands on this book. Read this book. I know it's going to be brilliant because I know Em, and she is that and so much more. And then share it with someone. I truly believe when you're inspired, you inspire others. And we need to give more women permission to stop waiting, right, for it to be the time and say, you know what, my time is now. So, Em, thanks again. Can't wait to get that lunch date on the books here soon.
We will. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, honey. All right, bye-bye.
Ciao.
You've just heard another uplifting episode of Inspired Living with Keri Murphy, the podcast. I hope you loved it. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And if you'd like to know more about Inspired Living or to get your hands on many of our awesome free resources, such as the Be Studio Ready Guide, simply visit us at inspiredliving.tv/podcast. Remember, your vision is your destiny, and we're here to help you bring it to life. Join me again next week for another extraordinary episode.